Welcome to another day in the Matrix. Today's the day, November 5th, and we all know what this day represents. And while most are distracted by what's unfolding on the world stage, rattled with confusion, we're going to provide clarity so that you can be prepared for what's coming next for the crypto market in this time-sensitive update, where I'll be reviewing the charts of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP, as well as the S&P 500 to get a thorough overview of the markets for what could be the most important week of the year for investors. Here at watersabove, we're empowering you to actualize your potential with esoteric investing by combining gematria, numerology, and astrology with technical analysis to understand these markets and finally become a more profitable investor. Now let's take the clear pill. And I want to kick this one off by reviewing a pattern that's been playing out for most of the year for Bitcoin. As you can see here in this Bitcoin chart, it has experienced cyclical corrections during the first 7 days of nearly every month of this year here in 2024, completing this corrective phase before the 7th day of each month, with the exception of last month if you want to entertain this, which although we did technically bottom on October 3rd, there was a micro double bottom that formed into the week of October 10th, which was immediately bought back up, and the price difference between the October 3rd lows and the October 10th lows were negligible. But still, to be fair, I did need to point that out. All in all, 7 of the past 8 months have started with a correction that bottomed within the first 7 days of the month. And what's most important to mention is that 5 out of the past 6 iterations, so for the past half a year, those lows that came in during that time frame were the lowest that Bitcoin traded for the remainder of that month. And this month so far seems to be no different, especially with this buyback today. Although we are aware it's November 5th, it's a very, very volatile day on the world stage. So volatility should be expected, and we should actually expect volatility for this entire week. But whilst I've brought this up, that means that with this data considered, it's likely Bitcoin bottoms during this week we're trading in now. And how perfectly synchronized it is that we have this cultural moment that happens once every 4 years for the US political circus. And immediately following this event, we have a Federal Reserve FOMC meeting this Thursday. We gotta love their script. And since I brought it up, with this event happening today, we can look back on Bitcoin's behavior during past sell-ections, 2012, 2016, and 2020. With 2012 and 2020 specifically showing that the day of this selection was the lowest that Bitcoin went for the remainder of the cycle, and in the 2016 iteration correcting slightly into November 13th, the day before the full moon in that year, in that month. So please keep that in mind. And if you've been following along here on this channel, you'd be aware of the key date, November 15th, that I've been talking about for the past 3 months to prepare for that date, because it's the last full moon before the very rare black moon that we have in December, which I just released a full presentation on, Black Moon Decoded, and this is definitely one of the most powerful decodes I've ever released, covering everything from this election to the next Super Bowl in 2025 and providing a thorough market outlook for the rest of the year all the way up until April 2025, giving you plenty of time to get prepared for how the rest of this bull run is going to play out. And this presentation is available now. You can find it, the link to this video, in the description of this or in the pinned comment below. So if you want to consider these charts we just reviewed over here, Bitcoin's price action around elections with both a Democrat or a Republican taking over the White House, followed by continuation to the upside to finish off the month of November in 2012, 2016, and 2020, all of the elections that Bitcoin has traded through. Synchronizing that with the first chart that we reviewed, with Bitcoin bottoming within the first 7 days of almost every month this year. This means that we're likely to have bottomed this week. And also regarding the month of November, we have Bitcoin seasonality, showing that November is our best performing month of the year. And this data is from August 2010 through April 2023. And for November 2023, which this chart doesn't include, Bitcoin closed the month up almost 9%. So a green month in November for last year as well. Also, let's review Bitcoin's performance during November and December with specifically considering election years. And we have November, December for 2012, 2016, and 2020 to close out those years. And you can see green across the board. Now, of course, we're reviewing just 3 examples, and with being limited to data only going back to 2012, this is very limited data to work with, admittedly. So this is the perfect time to check in with the traditional markets and see what's been going on there, since we have over a century of data that we could review. So we're going to be heading over to the S&P 500 as promised, and we're going to do a quick recap of our Year of the Dragon analysis that I first introduced in September of 2023, about a year ago, over a year ago now. And we're going to start with the last dragon year of 2012. You can see that we peaked in the month of October and then rolled over and corrected into November 15th, just about 10 days after that election. Now consider, we're talking about November 15th pretty much for the past 3 to 4 months this year, and I've been putting a lot of emphasis on it for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, it will be a full moon. We tend to correct and finish off a corrective phase into a full moon, and then leaving a full moon, moving into a new moon, we tend to be bullish. Also, the fact that we have Saturn retrograde, and with that considered, Saturn will be going direct on the 15th. It's been retrograde pretty much for the past 6 months, I believe, since June. So this is a exaggerated constrictive phase, and since Saturn is Satoshi, the creator of Bitcoin, this is very important you consider the mythology with the astrology for this, because that's what runs this market, not the news. It is gematria, numerology, and astrology. So I'm considering that as a also now building my confidence with what I've just considered, because I'm going to start revealing the pattern for this November 15th into November 16th timeframe in other dragon years. So it's perfect. It's going to be so clean and so synchronized. So let's get into it. We have our first example clearly showing a correction a couple days after the election, and then bouncing recovery into the end of the year, closed off that Chinese New Year bullish, leading into the Year of the Snake 2013. Then we have the prior Year of the Dragon, which is the year 2000. This was a very powerful example because this was during post.com bubble, also a really wild election, which I will be bringing up in a second, and it also was a Shemitah year. So that's why I'm not entertaining this scenario for the market this time around, especially because we were in a Shemitah year back then, and that's a massive variable to consider, and we don't have to consider that this time around because we already made it through our Shemitah year from 2021 to 2022, and that was why they ritualized the start of all of that with the C19 crash and that lockdown time frame. That was during Shemitah. So when I brought this to the world stage about 3 years ago, I wasn't playing around. You know, that moment is very serious, and I was showing past examples such as 2000 to prove the point. But we're not in that energy today. We're just not. We were already through it by 2022, and we're here in 2024 moving into 2025. So I'm optimistic that it won't play like this. But we do need to review it, because there is something that I am entertaining about this scenario back in the year 2000, and that was the way that election went between Al Gore and George Bush. We had that recount in Florida, taking 5 weeks for the Supreme Court to decide on giving Florida to George Bush on December 12th, and then Gore conceded the following day on December 13th. Now I can definitely entertain a situation like this for this election here in 2024, which is something I've been bringing up pretty much throughout this whole year. And for those who are interested in seeing how scripted these elections are, I thoroughly exposed that in my new presentation, Black Moon Decoded, that I just showed you a moment ago. Again, available over on my Patreon for our mastermind community, and the link is in the description below. So, of course, during a moment of confusion in these election results, the market can become incredibly volatile. And I know that's exactly why they scripted this FOMC that's coming up immediately after this selection for that exact reason. Because they know that there's probably going to be some weirdness going on over the next 48 hours, and the Fed wants to come in to do what they do. They want to be the savior, also the judge, juror, and executioner. They run the markets. At least that's what market analysts think. What I know runs the markets is the energy that makes up all of what's going on here in finance. Again, gematria, numerology, and astrology. It's the code of this world. So when analyzing this chart of the year 2000, many of you are probably aware we had the dot-com bubble popping before that election in that year. Tech stocks were a new craze back then, but today, tech stocks are completely normal. Tech is 100% normalized. I mean, we just had Elon introduce humanoid robots a couple weeks ago. I mean, we're there, guys. So this is a much different environment. This was like we were getting new to the tech and the euphoria of the tech stock boom. But today, it's not the same. Pretty much tech stocks are what's holding up the market, and these tech stocks are being utilized and implemented, and they're working technologies for the most part, and they're all embedded in government. So, well, you know how it goes. Now, getting back to this, we are not in any isolated bubble right now. But the key word there is isolated bubble. We are not in any particular isolated bubble right now compared to back then in the year 2000. What we are in is an everything bubble, and the Fed runs the show. So we're aware of what's going on with BlackRock and State Street and everything else here. That's what's keeping this everything bubble growing and growing and growing, and I will touch on that a little bit later. But needless to say, it is not the same as the year 2000. Now, let's move on to the dragon year of 1988. This is a very important time frame. It was post-Shemitah year. Now remember, we are moving post-Shemitah year now, where we have a close relationship to it, but we are not in a Shemitah. So this is kind of cool, where you could look at this almost like 2022, and then you could look at this kind of like 2024 this year. Kind of my way of looking at it. Just don't consider that we had all-time highs back here. It would be more flipped. It's just the energetics that I'm talking about here, and I don't want to confuse you guys. But what we do see is the pattern here for 1988 was the market topped in late October, and then we had a correction into November 16th. Both exactly like our first example in 2012. And then we recovered until the end of that year, rallying higher into the Chinese New Year, and then we also continued up further, all like our first example in 2012, nearly identical. So take note of that correction into November 15th and 16th in these two examples, because that very well could be playing out here in 2024. Then we have 1976. Here in this example, topped out into late September, moving into October. Then we had this correction. We had this correction into about November 10th, pivot and recovery off of November 15th, as you can see, and then pushing up into the end of that year. You're seeing a pattern here, right? So it's very important to look at this past, 10 days past the election time frame. Then we have 1964, and this is very, very important because this was the year of specifically the Wood Dragon. And we're here in 2024 in the year of the Wood Dragon. And guess who was born in the year of the Wood Dragon in 1964? She was. And she's from Oakland, California in the San Francisco Bay Area. And who just lost the Super Bowl this year? The San Francisco 49ers. They lost against the Chiefs, and this was a rematch from Super Bowl 54, which was in the year 2020. the year Biden won the election that made Kamala Harris the 49th vice president. That's right, the 49th vice president during the year that the 49ers lost. And here she is running for president during her year, the year of the dragon, and the 49ers also lost again to the same team. Now, what's really important to mention is the layer of gematria, because we have Kamala Harris giving you 49. This is incredibly symbolic. So remember, the 49ers have been in 2 recent Super Bowls since a complete change in our whole world since C19 has started. Remember that. Super Bowl was back in 2020, their first game that they lost. And then here we are, and you can see how perfectly synchronized it is into her becoming the vice president, tied back to where she's from, and even her name is coded into this 49 concept. Last thing to mention also is the fact that we did recently move through the year of Jubilee, and Jubilee is after 7 cycles of 7 Shemitah years, and then on the 50th year we practice biblical Jubilee. So the 49th year is the final Shemitah you have, leading into what you can call like a super cycle. And that was why from 2021 to 2022, the market behaved the way that it did, and that was our bear market for crypto. And then moving into 2023, which was Jubilee year, we had that recovery. It was positive. But then remember, the moment Jubilee was over, we had the October 7th event in Israel, and what could effectively be the start of World War III officially. So that's important to bring up regarding the 49 code and the reason why the 49ers have been in these recent Super Bowls, because it is tied 100% to the year before the Shemitah and the year after the Jubilee. This is scripted and rigged sports. So getting back to the charts, during the year of 1964, the dragon year, the year Kamala Harris was born, the markets actually pushed up through the election, and then it corrected into December, which is a little weird, but what is not weird is the fact that we recovered and we pushed up even higher into Chinese New Year, just like we saw in those past iterations. And then this was the year the U.S. got involved in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War in 1965, in this year of the snake. It's something that I've been bringing up a lot lately to prepare for the U.S. to get more involved in this World War III next year during the year of the snake. And I'll have a full year of the snake decoded released in January 2025 as part of my ongoing Chinese zodiac series that I've been doing each year. But it's actually something I gave a sneak peek to inside of my crypto decoding blueprint. So got some big surprises coming later this month regarding my decoding mastermind course, which has that crypto decoding blueprint in it for free. Just so you're aware, I will be releasing a new masterclass into that decoding mastermind called Trinity Masterclass, and I'm really excited to share that. It's going to be bringing in a lot of layers from Abrahamic religions and just clearing the air on a lot of things symbolically, mythologically, etymologically. I'm really excited to get it up. But anyways, let's wrap up this year of the dragon analysis. For this example of 1964, it shows us another example of a promising push up into next year, regardless of who's president. And to wrap up this year of the snake analysis, we have 2 more examples. We have 1952. I know this is a little bit hard to see. And in 1952, you have this green box here. We corrected into October, and then we pushed higher into the end of the year. And then in 1940, you can see we actually topped right around the election time, but this was during World War II. So a much different world back then, but the war theme is of the essence now, which that's transpired with the Zionists. Although I am not entertaining this 1940 example for the market as much in my own personal analysis because of the drastic differences between the economy today versus then. But this does give us 2 examples of 1940 and the year 2000 to consider as quote unquote worst case scenarios. And by the way, although I'm optimistic on us having a final push up into the end of this bull run in the year 2025, We have to be honest and we have to admit that we have a violent combination of 1940, World War II mixed with the year 2000 and 2008 bubbles all combined. As I said earlier, we are in an everything bubble. But my decoding system combined with this technical analysis shows that we still have a little more juice in this fruit. This market is getting ready to play its swan song. I hope you know what I mean. And I think we still have until the total lunar eclipse of March 14th, 2025 to see that final run up into eclipse season, and particularly the end of this Chinese year of the dragon. As we saw, that's synchronized with many examples I just went through, going all the way back to 1940, So this is powerful stuff to consider, guys. If you were around to hear my first time introducing this year of the dragon analysis with the S&P, just like I did with you all moments ago here in this video, I was sharing it with you back here. So I marked off the 5,900 territory because I already showed how when we go through all the dragon years, we have about a 24% gain, and how synchronized that was with a 24% move from the start of the year of the dragon into where that would lead us with the 5,900 points, and the fact that 5-9 is in dragon in gematria. So using the rules of numerology, 5,900 points, you remove the zeros, you get the number 59, and there you have it. And we've made it all the way up to this 1.618 fib, the golden ratio. That's not the most healthy place to be and get rejected, but again, this is the type of move we see around this time of year every single year of the dragon. So I am not shaken out by this. And the point of this analysis was to calm everyone's nerves and let you know, regardless of who becomes president, there's a cycle going on here. And in that Black Moon Decoded that I just released over on Patreon, I show clear how it does not matter if it's a Democrat or if it's a Republican. It's irrelevant. This market does not move off of those things. Those are just the talking heads that are put in posture by the apex predator, and we have to deal with them as talking heads for those 4-year cycles or 8-year cycles. But all in all, we'll see there's a more powerful cycle that is built within all of that, such as the Shemitah year, Jubilee years, and there's so many other things that we could bring up too. But just to keep this very simple, I wanted to show you how we can isolate a year with our Chinese zodiac and prove a pattern. And here we have it. So this is really, really important stuff. And then we also have another thing, very exoteric. It shows you all of the Dow Jones years going back to 1896. And then also the red lines are the presidential election years. And you see one thing that they all have in common is that it's actually one of our best performing months in December. A little bit of red in November, but very powerful month in December. And then when we roll back over to January, you can see that we would no longer be in a presidential election year since we moved through it. This would be the inauguration month, and we are blue and heading up. So that theory of moving bullish throughout the beginning of this upcoming year is not weird. It's a very normal cyclical pattern. So let's finish this up with where we're at right now. I did mention that I am really optimistic until the total lunar eclipse of March 14th, 2025, and that I believe that we can see that final run up into that eclipse season, specifically for cryptocurrency. As for the stock market, I think into January is perfectly fine. Then we have the 1965 example that I kind of brought up regarding Vietnam and the fact that that was the year of the snake and we're moving into the year of the snake. But that was specifically the year of the water snake, or sorry, the wood snake, excuse me, year of the wood snake. And we're moving into the year of the wood snake. And we topped in 1965 initially, right before the eclipses of that year in May 1965, I believe. You could go check that out if you want confirmation. But that's another reason why I'm thinking we will top out before the first eclipses of this year. And then we also have a similar combination of 1941, 1965, 2001, and even 2008, the year of the subprime mortgage crisis, regarding the geopolitical situation, not necessarily just the markets. Guys, remember in 1965, when the US went to the Vietnam War, the market was still bullish all of 1965. So keep that in mind. Again, it all adds up to whoever the president is that gets selected. They're not really winning. They're adopting a financial crisis. And for me, the trigger of that in 2025 is two key moments: March into April of next year, and then also September into October as well of 2025. And of course, we'll track things as we progress. Now let's wrap up the stock market analysis of where we're at today in this chart. As you can see, a clear uptrend. We've effectively hit as high as we should go for the year. We could have that dip down into the 15th and then rally back up and then only make it back to like around a double top leading into the end of the year. That would not be strange at all. This market is toasted. It's very overheated, and we've already hit the technical target of the 1618. So I am optimistic for push higher into 2025, but as for this calendar year of 2024, it's precarious. You know, we do have an FOMC in a couple days, and we do have another FOMC in December. So likely to cut rates, and it's likely to not be a full-blown recession until Q1 2025 at some point. So just something to keep in mind. Q2 is probably the more accurate thing to bring up if you want to go by the textbook definition of what a recession is. So we've hit our technical targets. Now, as for this corrective phase, we do have this level right here of around 5,600 points. We're sitting at around 5,700, so that would be a correction of about 3% more. That's about what we would do in our November 15th corrections and past iterations. So when we're looking at the whole pull from about here at 5,880 points to around this 5,500 level, it's a 5% correction. And this would just be a back test of a couple zones that we were rejected on before noticeable corrections. And that would be a healthy back test level. So keep that in mind, 5,600. And the pattern that we're playing right now is nearly identical to the 2012, 1964, 1977, 1988. I mean, even the people that were following along with the 1972 correlations, which some people have brought to my desk, I do see merit in that as well. And all of it says that we should continue up higher into the end of the year. Now, let's get over into Bitcoin and discuss something that just happened lately, because I've already went over the fact that we're pretty much mimicking what we've done every month. We do need to look to this upcoming November 7th, though, and be open-minded about this upcoming November 15th full moon. Let's look at the 2-month close. This is very important. This was our past bi-monthly close. A lot of people are not talking about this, but I feel it's important to talk about because the length of this candle body is significant, and it was the first concrete 2-month closure at all-time highs. So this is into price discovery already from a macro perspective. And then we have the 3-month and 4-month closing on the new year with the next 2-month. So naturally, it's a very powerful candle. But as you can see here with the 4-month, we're also into all-time highs. And this is a very good candle structure. Okay, we're not even overheated. We're just getting into overbought. So 3-month, we're still in probably around the high 60s. To bi-monthly, we're still in the low 60s regarding RSI. Monthly, I mean, we're only at 66 on the monthly RSI. We have so much more room to push. This is crazy. I mean, we've seen 90 on RSI on the monthly when we top out. So it really much, when you look at it from the monthly perspective, when I hold my cursor here and I draw it from the right to the left, you're going to see what we've been back testing with our candle body closures for this whole past 8 months, guys. We have rejection, rejection, and then when I come over to the right, we've been holding the prior resistance levels of the past bull run top as a support after a back test. I can't explain to you how bullish that is. All right. So the people that are getting fudded out of this market and getting scared right now, I mean, you just got to zoom out. That's the best practice here in crypto, especially with a market that's trading 365, 24 hours every single day. I know how it could get sometimes. It's a very acidic market consciously. So we have this upcoming weekly that is pushing through that first into second week. I already brought this up with this analysis here. So I want you to keep in mind that if we get a continuation candle, that's great, but we still have this higher high. The high is that we have from March. We need to get above 71,500 on a weekly close. How many times this year have I been saying that? I've had this level marked all the way since pretty much the great American eclipse of April of this year. So the fact that we had this really quick move to this double top, that was not healthy. This back test is in alignment with the typical first week of the year correction, first week of the month correction, excuse me. And now we're moving into election season. We probably will get some weirdness over the next 48 hours to 72 hours. That's why I wanted to get this video out. But all in all, when you zoom out, this is looking very, very bullish. Let me pull up some of these moving averages as well. We have the 13 above the 21 above the 34 EMAs. That's in bullish posture. And we also have the 8 simple moving average above all of those EMAs as well. Meaning on the weekly chart, we are in a full bullish posture with all of these moving averages tilted to the upside. That's bullish. This is our 5-day chart. This is looking amazing. We have our 8 above the 13 above the 21, and we've definitely had this 55 cross a little bit higher, but this is showing us that if we were to get a dramatic push to the downside, we should find some supports because this is the first time we've been in a posture like this in some time since it's all coiled together back in the summer of this year. Let's look at the 3-day. 3-day is looking pretty good. This recent correction that we had into yesterday was very dramatic. It was as dramatic as we went up, was as dramatic as we came down. And now today we're getting a very violent buyback as well. But what I like to see is this wolf cross with the 8 above the 55 over here. And now everything is in a bullish posture. 8, 13, 21, 34, 55. This looks gorgeous. I really have nothing bearish to say about this chart at this time, unless we were to get a wolf cross on the weekly, which will be the 8 crossing below the 55. And the fact that they're all sloping to the upside right now, and we're pushing into retest these prior resistance zones, that's very bullish as well. And one other thing to mention before I move on to Ethereum is you see how all of these tails to the downside on these volatile sell-off days, they're very long tails, meaning there's a lot of buy pressure. That's selling exhaustion. So this is liquidations going on. Everything that was going up here and going down here, this week into this week, that was all liquidations. This is getting leveraged, highly levered players out of the game. That's all. So let's move on to Ethereum. But as for my take on things, I think we need to move through the November 15th full moon. Keep that in mind. November 15th full moon, and then moving into the end of the month, we should be performing at least half of what we normally get. I would anticipate at least a 20% move for Bitcoin for the month of November at the end. So December 1st is when I would expect that full 20% push. Now, where would that take us? Just so I could show you really quickly. And this is not a prediction. It's just going through all of the data that we've been discussing and looking at it neutrally. So we're at about 69,500 on the close, and a 20% push would put us up into about 83K opening up the month of December. And then remember, we have in December a black moon, 2 new moons in the same month. So it'd be great if once we push into price discovery, if these new moon dumps would finalize, because that's been a little bit too repetitive this year. And a pattern break is needed, not just for my portfolio, but just now it's like everyone expects it. I think I'm probably not the only one that's brought up this. I mean, I might be the only one that's told you the reason why it's happening is because of the new moon. But let's move on. We have Ethereum. Ethereum is looking a little shaky here at these lower supports. But one thing I do like to see is the fact that as Bitcoin has pushed back up into its resistance, it is getting above 60% in dominance. Now, the reason I say that now is because that means I don't give a shit what Ethereum or altcoins do right now, because my signal for the crazy altcoin season is with Bitcoin going up in price and Bitcoin dominance going up in percentage. If we can see Bitcoin dominance and Bitcoin breaking out simultaneously, that's a very good sign that you will see some big moves in altcoins to follow. So that is all I care about right now. It's what I've been sticking to this entire bull run, and I won't change my mind. And it's pretty noticeable. Once Bitcoin keeled over after the March all-time highs, we've saw 70 to 80% corrections across the board for all altcoins. And then as Bitcoin has pushed back up into pretty much new all-time or retesting prior all-time highs, altcoins have stayed down, substantially down from where they were in March. And that has everything to do with what I just explained. And I am positive and happy about it. Not because I'm a Bitcoin maxi. I actually hold way more altcoins in percentage to just my Bitcoin. But generally, what I'm trying to say here is I know the way this market operates. And you should get excited about a Bitcoin breakout into price discovery coupled with Bitcoin dominance going up. So this looks good. I like to see this structure of higher lows on Ethereum. And I think even if Bitcoin was to break into about $64 or $75,000, ETH would actually still probably be just around 3K. That's how powerful Bitcoin's about to become. And remember that we are still down. We would still need about 100% move to retest all-time highs for Ethereum. Meaning that ETH, even though it's a conservative play, it's actually a good thing to consider for portfolios. That's not financial advice, but it's a safer play, obviously. I mean, look at the bear market that it had. It was actually not nearly as bad as what I thought it would be, only an 81% move to the downside. And then it came back up off of this corrective phase in just a little over, almost 2 years, 350%. I mean, if the guys in the stock market could do some shit like this, they would be all over it. So I don't even care about the Ethereum ETF or any of that exoteric stuff. This was a solid play, especially with what many would consider a blue chip. And I don't want to get into the slow, transactions or the gas fees or any of that nonsense. Like the New World Order created everything that you know with something called planned product obsolescence. Write it down. They designed everything that they will use against you exactly the way it was designed back in the original blueprint. Every company does this. It's sick, it's disturbing, but it's just what it is. So anything you're complaining about with Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any of these, top projects, just be aware that it wasn't designed for you in the first place. Wake up, and I know that breaks hearts, but it just is what it is. That's why when you get ahead of it all and you just remove the emotion and remove the complaining and being a Karen and just actually take it for what it is, you start to become a much better investor. So let's move on from this, but I like the structure of higher lows in general. I think that Bitcoin's moments away from price discovery, which could lead to a move to about 3,100 to 3,200 for Ethereum. And then once it starts breaking into 80, a little bit higher than 80, that's when you'll see a sharp line like this. So we're looking good, and the fact that we've retested this line several times throughout the past couple months is promising, and getting back in that golden pocket would be great. But at this time, it's really just about the Bitcoin game and seeing what Bitcoin will do on the next move. And I believe Bitcoin, any suppression for Bitcoin at this time would just be because of volatility coming in from what the Fed decides to do. Now we have XRP, and this chart has been pretty much doing the same thing for months now. So it's important that we speak the truth here and we don't entertain any nonsense. And I know right now the XRP community is feeling a little bit lost. What you should do is go check out the recent interview I just did with the Bearable Bull over on his channel. We talk a lot about some things theoretically that I'm anticipating for XRP. But as for this chart, there has not been a ton of new updates, although what I can say is we do know that XRP likes to move up in straight lines whenever it makes moves. And what I feel is if we were to look back at this phase 5 and align it with where we are at this phase 5, it's actually no different. Let me show you. We're going to take from this peak over here to the day of retesting, and let's just call it the day of the breakout. It was about 476 days. Now let's do the same. Let's take to when we pushed up into this line and match it to where we are today. You can see 482 days. We are not far off. And I believe that that's something important to keep in mind because a lot of people are getting impatient now. And by the way, I have not adjusted these lines or this phase since I made this chart and put it on X. So if you guys like, go over and follow on X. Got a lot going on over there. It's watersabove without the O. Same over there on IG. But anyways, this is powerful stuff to realize how close we are to that move and how perfectly synchronized it is with Bitcoin moments away from the month that it typically enters price discovery, which is the month of November. Okay, so what else is there to say here besides we're in the final moments before things get pretty crazy? And I just showed you the amount of days from a cycle back in 2015 into this March 7th, 2017 moment and how we're mimicking that. Pretty much the same. So I am very optimistic about this next move on XRP, and I think if it could break 72 cents on a macro closure, it will shortly after move up to about $1.40, and this will be in harmony with with ETH probably getting back to all-time highs. So if I had to synchronize it all, if Ethereum was to get back to these highs of November 2021, which was around $4,800, that's what I think would facilitate that move for XRP to $1.40. And then if Ethereum could break out and get past 5,000 and keep going higher, that's when I believe you'll see that retest of prior all-time highs for XRP. And guess what? That could all happen in just a couple weeks. If you look at this breakdown day over to where it initially topped, that was 63 days, guys. 2 months. So I'm going to end this one here. I believe we covered all the key information, pretty much gave an entire podcast in this video. I hope you appreciated this one. Again, big cultural moment today. So we have a lot going on in the world stage. A lot of people are worried, confused, and hopefully this brought you clarity. And if you want even more clarity and you want to get some behind the scenes updates, such as this new Black Moon Decoded, again, that's available now. And I will have a new podcast coming out this week. You just had a new Red Pill podcast release over on my Patreon a couple days ago. So those are coming out weekly. I have about 188 podcasts, plus this Black Moon Decoded, plus the Year of the Dragon Decoded. You'll be getting access to the Year of the Snake Decoded when that comes out in January. So that Patreon membership is packed with value, almost 400 exclusive posts, and I do weekly text updates as well. And you'll also get access to see what I'm buying and what I'm selling with live investment updates. And that will definitely come in handy for us moving into this next phase where I'll be actually getting into my exit strategy. So I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you're having an amazing rest of your day in the Matrix. Much love.